For Sunday, October 18th, you found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, crime counts in the city of Atlanta and Kasim Reed reacts. Is the governor a betting man? And on the Democratic presidential side, damn those emails. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this Sunday. Thanks to all of you who sent me best wishes after my hip surgery. And I guess I'll echo Alexis after her hip surgery, right? And you still have one hip to go.
I have one to go.
So I don't know if discussing total hip replacements attracts a younger demographic, but the rest of this might. We're on a new set.
Look at this.
After all these years, we're on a big, new, beautiful set. We've joined the adults in the main newsroom, main studio.
There you go.
And there are lots of bells and whistles here. And bear with us as we get used to them. Well, let's turn now to the news. It's something we've talked about over and over and over again. But while I was out for 3 weeks, yes, 3 weeks, watching a lot of news, I realized that this crime situation in Atlanta is probably worse than I'd thought. Phil has been hammering at it. But what I saw night after night was neighborhood meetings and meetings with Kasim Reed. And I got to say to the mayor, he stood up and took the arrows. Phil, the statistics say that violent crime, Part 1 crime, is down, but neighborhood crime has to be up.
Well, that's right. When you look at Zone 2 and Zone 5, and all of us have seen the news with regard to break-ins, the murder rate is doubled from a year ago in the city of Atlanta. The mayor and the chief of Atlanta have a huge problem. I've talked to a lot of cops on the beat this week, and there's not the aggressive policing. You hear at roll calls that there's no direction. Remember the old Red Dog unit, guys?
Yes.
That was aggressive policing, and you're not getting that. You have to be properly trained.
Yes.
You have to be properly trained, but this is a huge problem. And Dick, I still have to remember you had Mayor Kasim Reed at the mayor's ball with this hands up, don't shoot mentality, and that is bad for morale.
Well, that does hurt police morale. Jeff, one of the things I noticed from Mayor Reed this week, he did promise to open the overtime spigot, and that's expensive.
It is.
But the city finances apparently allow for it.
Yes, I think that the city is in good enough shape to do that, and the mayor wants to address this problem. You gave him credit for standing up and taking the arrows, and it's tough to go out there in those communities and hear those stories of people being robbed at gunpoint and things like that, and what are you going to do about it, especially when you're the mayor of the city and you're being held directly responsible, almost as if you were the one to commit these crimes. And so I think that he's really stood up in that regard, because a lot of mayors can just hide behind that facade over there at City Hall, and you really don't see him at community meetings. He's been out. But one of the points that seems to resonate a tremendous amount with me is the rate of recidivism, and that you have this really, and we know who they are, this small core group of criminals who go out time and
What
time
do you say, 480 of them?
again. Exactly right. Only 16 of them have ever spent any time in jail, and they've committed the lion's share of crimes in Atlanta. And the mayor, and when you're at one of these community meetings and you hear the mayor say something as profound as, if they don't kill you, they're not going to spend any time in jail. We have a serious, serious criminal justice problem that we need to be able to address.
It's permissive judges in Fulton County.
Well,
we all
and
agree on
in fairness
that.
to the judges,
It's
Alexis.
lack of jail space. I don't think that it's
That's right. They weren't sending
say,
criminals to jail because
they
there
were
was no
doing
space.
alternative
We can
sentencing.
easily get jail space in other counties, and we've been doing that.
Well, I
that
guess
costs
we
money,
could.
too.
But there's also an argument going on about how big is the police force? What is the full complement of officers? And Kasim Reed is saying that there are 1,850, I believe.
Right.
I
and
still
another-
wonder what happened to the 2,000.
Well-
but, you know, they've got classes in the academy. They're trying.
Right. He says that they've got over 100 in the academy right now being trained, which will get them back up to that 2,000 complement. And of course, you know, that was his pledge that he made when he was first elected. And it was the first time we'd had that number of officers on the street. When Mayor Kasim Reed was elected, or after he was elected, he brought those numbers up. So I think that he's maintaining that and is trying to make sure that we have enough officers.
And that's good as far as it goes, but it goes back again to what type of policing are you doing with these numbers? Remember those mini motorcycles you used to see in the neighborhoods? Bring those back. Bring back bicycles. More police visibility. Again, at the roll call, you're not getting specific direction on how you deal with crime. And I've talked about gangs here. You know, you've got just dozens of gangs that are a huge problem. The mayor admits that. But more aggressive policing is needed.
And I think they are, as far as the gangs are concerned, that's a metro
It is.
problem, and they are cooperating with across jurisdictions on that.
I know
so
for
there
a
is
fact
even
the
a
car
federal
break-ins
task force on that.
that annoy people and drive them crazy, those are gangs that might hit in Dunwoody one
That's
day
right.
and Atlanta the
But
next day.
You're right, Dick, but here's a quick example. You see 4 or 5 guys on a block congregating. You know, are you going to drive by? Are you going to slow down? Are you going to give eye contact? None of this is being given to the young rookie cops, I'm told.
Well,
Now, I've been gone 3 weeks. Here's a surprise. Let's turn toward DeKalb County. How about that? A real surprise to all of us on the Georgia Gang. I was fascinated. There were nothing really on the news or in print, but there was a day a week or so ago when the rumor mill lit up. My phone lit up, my email lit up, that Lee May was going to resign. And it was he said something he said at a community meeting in which he said, you know, and I wasn't sure whether he was musing about the past or talking about a future course, but he said he would like to sit down with Governor Deal and discuss his future. And again, I'm not sure that he was talking about the past when the report came out or now. But I suspect, this is just me, if he has a meeting with Governor Deal, he would no longer be the interim CEO. What do you think, Phil?
Well, and Jeff and I talked a little bit about this last week. Governor Deal, of course, appointed him, for those viewers who are just coming in late to this. And he is the interim CEO. Very serious allegations have been leveled against him, especially with his finances. And so I think the way it's going now, he's going to be gone soon.
well, and the problem, though, that the governor has is that there is no official charge or allegation being brought because of the way the information was gathered. You know, Lee May hired a private investigative team, former Attorney General Mike Bowers and another person, to look into things. They found many things, but they didn't have the ability to charge.
Let me echo that. I know what Phil's saying about the charges against Lee May. There are no charges against Lee May.
Well, remember the GBI, let's go back a second. The GBI is still investigating. And
Right.
so
Well,
the governor's
that's
going to
true.
wait. The governor's going to wait until they conclude the investigation. But these allegations in the Bowers-Hyde report are extremely serious, and that's why the GBI is investigating.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But the governor has to have that official investigation before he can act on it.
So one commissioner has called for Lee May to resign. That's Nancy Jester. The others seem silent on it. Late in the week, another strange turn. The district attorney himself, Robert James, decided to reimburse the county for meal expenses that were over the county limits, including, and I think I got this right, taking 30 staffers to Callaway Gardens on New Year's Eve, and he's going to reimburse the meals, not the trip. Is that right?
That's the way
your
I
understanding?
understand
There's
it.
some per diem allowance there, and that per diem allowance was exceeded over a number of years. It's not a lot of money, especially when you take it over several years. But you know, one of the things about the Bowers report was the standard that it set with the indictment of Bob Lunston.
Right,
And-
$250.
And it was about $250. And here we're talking about an overage of P-card expenses over $1,000, $1,300, $1,400, whatever it is, that he has already agreed to repay. And so what's the standard of prosecution? What's the standard for an indictment? And if the standard is $250 in your very own office and with your very own P-cards, you've exceeded that standard by a factor of 5, then there seems to be a problem.
Well, and we know the GBI is looking at that because Robert James turned all those expenses over to the GBI. It's a work in progress, and I do like that Lunston precedent. And seriously, if the Bob Lunston indictment stands and is valid, you could indict 30, 40 people in DeKalb based on that list.
And that was in the report.
That was the basis for the Bowers report.
That's
That
right.
was one of the things that we have to accept as valid because that indictment was actually issued.
All right, we've got to get out. When we come back, Governor Deal says don't bet on it. We'll tell you what he means in a minute.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
You're not watching to hear us talk about our situation here in the main studio at Fox 5, but we actually have live Viper weather. So if Jeff or Alexis looks confused, It's because they're studying where to go this weekend. Live Viper weather. All right, let's turn to state news. Governor Deal was asked about consumer gambling and what appears to be a major push by giant casinos into Georgia, and he uttered a memorable line. He said, "Don't bet on it." I never thought of him as a merry punster, but he did. And though it seems to me that what the governor was saying was not something about principle, but more something about price, Phil. He said, "Don't bet on it," but then he elaborated that the current proposal doesn't seem to throw enough money toward the state. He'd rather see the state get 20 to 30% of the proceeds.
That's right, and of course we're talking about if casino gambling were to come into Georgia, which is a high hurdle, we can talk about, it would have to be tied to the lottery, and it would have to be tied to pre-K and education tuition, and so that's what he was talking about. But a lot of people are thinking, oh, this is going to roll right through, and I think here on the gang we've been very skeptical about that. There's going to be some hearings again in Savannah in early November. The casino people will be here in droves, and it'll be very interesting.
Right through.
Well, it's going to be tough. I think you're right, Alexis, in the Senate. I think it would go through, but in the House of Representatives, I'm told by people who count the votes that
they
don't bet on it.
Don't bet on it. All right, then while I was gone, I was treated to a story that the Stone Mountain Authority, which is a state body which oversees the private company that runs Stone Mountain Park under a state contract, wants to build a memorial to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. atop Stone Mountain on top of the carvings of the Confederate war heroes. And as I watched it play out from my sickbed, as it were, boy, nobody likes this deal. You got the Sons of Confederate Veterans against it, the NAACP, the SCLC, the ABCDEF, everybody's against it. So where does it go, Phil?
Well, it puts the governor...
Apparently the governor's not for it either.
It puts him in a box. He's not thrilled about it. He was quoted in the AJC last Thursday as saying that's up to the Stone Mountain Memorial Association Board, who are going to vote on this Tuesday, and my prediction is they'll vote to table this. You're right. Nobody's happy. I think it's a good point. You don't want to put a Confederate flag on top of the King Memorial, and you don't want to put a King Memorial on top of a Confederate memorial.
That's an apples and oranges comparison, Phil.
Well, it's still a Confederate memorial, and that's under state law, as you know.
Yes, and the state law should just be changed, and that would solve everything.
Now,
I don't think that
if you want to do that, you can do that. I don't disagree with that. But for right now, I just think it's caused so much divisiveness. I think the association is going to have to back off, and that private company needs to stop meddling.
I think
their intentions were good, Phil.
Yeah.
I do, but it was a dumb
But it's
idea.
wrong.
It was a
They
dumb
don't
idea.
understand the South.
No,
They didn't understand the
I think that it's a
politics.
perfect understanding of the South, because every day people of different heritages interact and coexist in a South that's, very friendly toward one another, right? Whether you are a son of Confederate veteran or whether you were a son of the Civil Rights Movement. We all get along on a daily basis, and the question is, can our symbols coexist in a single place? Can we have a place where we can send school children to learn about the Civil War and civil rights and the evolution of the same? And can it still be seen as a Confederate memorial? I think that it can. I think that it's a microcosm of the South. I think that it's who we are all about. I work for Stone Mountain Park, and I want to make that clear. And I taught to people I consider to be real civil rights leaders who were not only accepting, but enthusiastic about this proposal.
So you think the NAACP and SCLC are crazy?
I think that the NAACP and the SCLC are not representative of the thousands of African Americans who use that park on a daily basis.
Well, I had to laugh.
Yeah.
I had to laugh. One of those African Americans was out there at the park with her child, and she said, we don't want to have any of these Confederate symbols here. Let's put all that behind us. And I'm saying to myself, why are you at the park with your child?
Well, not only that, but are we ISIS? We're going to go around destroying historical artifacts. We're going to destroy our history. That makes no sense. No, we should build on it. And I think that that's what Bill Stevens, who courageously endorsed this project, and he's the CEO of the Memorial Association, was attempting to do.
Well, he didn't even run that by his own board. He didn't even run that by his own board. He's in trouble.
He wasn't talking about sandblasting the carving or taking down the flag. He was talking about adding to,
Well,
not taking away
what
from.
are we
and
gonna-
it seems to me that that's where
Are
we
we
need
going
to
to add
be.
to the King Memorial and have Confederate?
Is the King Memorial a state-owned
No,
park?
it's not.
Well, the point is, Alexis, you do have a point. If you want to change the state law, try to change
Well,
the state
there's
law,
a
but honor the law.
Well, the statute does need to be changed. And to say that it's a
Well, in the
memorial to the
meantime, let's-
Confederacy and a memorial to the South.
Well.
And that would simply, I mean, they could just add one phrase and that would make it all right. And then they could, and I think it's a great idea to put it's a replica of the Liberty Bell is what they're talking about, to be reminiscent of King's speech, the I Have a Dream speech, where he says, let freedom ring
You know,
from
we've honored Dr.
Stone
King
Mountain of
at
Georgia.
every street in America, it seems like, and every memorial. I mean, it just seems like it's overkill. This is the type of political
Overkill.
correctness that people get angry about.
Well, I think, no, Phil makes a point. Every city has a Martin Luther King Drive or Boulevard. Every city has an elementary school called Martin Luther King. I mean, he is sufficiently honored everywhere, including a national federal holiday.
Well, I don't think that's
I
sufficient.
don't think that it was. I don't think that it was meant as necessarily a monument to Dr. King. I think that it was meant as a monument to the progress that we made in the South. And it was certainly a signal that we want to be inclusive and welcoming everywhere.
And I think
especially
that's
in publicly owned places.
That's well intentioned, but it's created a mess. Wouldn't you agree?
We have to get out.
But it's a way to resolve it, and instead of adding the carving of Samuel Jackson to the mountain. Someone suggested.
I think that this overemphasis on those 4 years in the middle of the 19th century, as Zell Miller said, has created quite a mess.
It's called history.
Well,
You can't erase it. You want to erase it.
I don't want to, no, and I think that I've just argued for not erasing
It's also
it,
called the most
acknowledging
dead
it.
of all our wars. Let's not forget that. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about some recent problems at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and that Democratic debate. Debate? Please, stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
We're trying to do that social media thing. Phil, have you updated the Facebook page?
It's updated every week.
Okay, good.
And we're having, if you look at it, we're having great conversations on it.
Good. I always forget, darn it. And I say that because the four of us, here we are on television, and we're grateful to be here, and we hope we convey information. But among the four of us, we are all longtime newspaper people. We believe in the value of newspapers. We believe in their ability to connect a community. And now I've learned for the first time, I wasn't prepared for this, Jeff, another round of layoffs at the AJC. I didn't think that was even possible.
Well, yeah, they were down to a staff of 160, 161 or something like that. You remember in the heyday when we were there, Dick, maybe they had a staff of 550 folks, and that's
650 for the Olympics.
650 for the Olympics. Yeah, really geared up for that. But well over 500 people for many years, and you know, it was a dominant newspaper, and that's where everybody went for their news. And now it's just a very, very different landscape in journalism, as we all know. The internet and has taken over. The digital world has taken over, and that's where people get most of their news. I remember the days when I used to.
Yeah, but the problem is that news originates in newspapers.
Yes,
and
it
then
does.
migrates to
It
the
does.
internet.
Yes.
So if you lose the origination factor, you know, now I used to say that the newspapers, with all due respect to Fox 5, great news department, but they didn't have the body count
That's right.
that the AJC had. Well, it's getting close now.
Well, yeah, and you know, and we're losing some veterans, and I think that we're
That's the
losing some
key.
institutional knowledge there, and that's what the real issue
you're
is.
right.
When you've got people who've been there for decades, Mike Morris, who's been doing breaking news at the AJC for 36 years, and you hear that he might be, you know, on the cutting block. That's just, it's tragic, and it's really sad for people like us who've spent decades
Right.
in this industry.
And to Jeff's point, the institutional memory, that's sad. You need these veteran editors and you need writers. You still need content, whether you're going digital or
That's
whether you
right.
got the old print model. So it is sad, although I have to do smile. I see where some of the left-wingers in the editorial department are being cut. No tears are shed for them on my
Well, I don't know. I haven't read in. I'm not up to speed on that. I thought just the sheer weight of the layoffs that preceded had done in most of the left wingers because they were 90% of the staff.
They're still there, Dick.
So, you know, what the heck. All right, now let's turn to the Democratic, quote, debate Tuesday night on CNN. it wasn't a debate, it was a hands-off Hillary session. It really was an evening to serve her needs as their untouched party nominee. And I guess the proof of the pudding came when Bernie Sanders broke in to say that he was sick. He was, what was it? I'm tired of hearing about your damn emails. And she cackled. That got her into the full witch's broom mode.
Dog.
And,
Whoa.
and well, she let out that cackle that will scare the children and the horses. And but I mean, Bernie Sanders took a critical issue for the Democratic Party off the table.
Well, I think you're making a good point, and all I would say is she did a good debate performance. I will say that. She had her talking points down. What's sad,
she was good.
What's sad is, though, she is echoing far too much Bernie Sanders' socialist nonsense and spending ideas and big government ideas. Again, it shows how far left the Democratic Party goes.
Well, that's always the case in the primary. They lean left, and then when it comes time for the general election, they come back center. And the same thing is happening right now with the Republican Party. They're all way off the edge of the globe on the right side trying to appeal
look what they took
to
off the
their
table.
primary voters.
They took off the table the emails.
Which I heard one
Even
analyst
during
said,
the FBI
I heard one
investigation.
analyst said that was a mistake, that Bernie misdelivered the line.
I heard that, too, but he didn't mean to
that
say
he'd
that.
been talking about it on the campaign
Yeah.
trail, and it ended up as a zinger against
They took
Hillary
Benghazi off the
And-
table.
Yes, but
they
he-
took her flip-flop on the Pacific trade deal off the table.
Yeah, I don't
and they
think-
never questioned her truthfulness.
I don't think that they get that opportunity. I don't think it's theirs to do. I think that the media and citizens and voters are still going to scrutinize all of those issues going forward. What the debate did do is give other candidates an opportunity to have their voices heard. We've only heard about Hillary Clinton and, quote, her damn emails, unquote, and to a lesser extent the socialist candidate,
Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Crazy
and we
Bernie.
haven't heard from a very thoughtful moderate who I thought did a very good presidential job in the debate. That would be Martin O'Malley from Maryland, who's done a great job there in his state.
He's speaking a day before they riot at Baltimore City Hall. He did a heck of a job there.
And the other two candidates. So I just think that if you're looking for a Hillary alternative and you don't want to do Bernie Sanders because he's unelectable, the debate gave folks an opportunity to look at some other.
We got to get out.
Other options.
I'll leave you with this closing question: is Lincoln Chafee a human, or is he a Disney character? When we come back, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll begin the winners and losers with Jeff.
Thank you, Dick. Great to have you back.
Thank you.
You're my first winner today. This is great to have you back in that seat. Another winner is Friendship Baptist Church this afternoon at 4 o'clock. They'll hold their groundbreaking for their new facility.
Are they going in the building or building a new one? I wasn't clear on that.
They're building a new facility, and they're gonna have the groundbreaking on the this day. They're having their pastor is being installed. New pastor, Pastor Richard Wills, their 7th pastor. Get this, in 153 years.
Wow.
Just their 7th pastor.
Wow.
So it's a big day for Friendship Baptist Church. My loser, those so-called civil rights leaders who went to the governor to complain about what would have been a wonderful opportunity for school children across the state and across the Southeast to really celebrate the progress that we've made in the South.
All right, Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I've got a couple of things. I'm going to congratulate the High Museum. Today, this very day, opens the Habsburg Splendor, the exhibit from the Vienna of old.
That looks good.
It looks really fascinating. So we should all go. We've got lots of time, so you can go see it. Also, I want to say happy birthday to Billy Aaron and congratulate her because she's using her birthday to raise money for the United Negro College Fund. She's challenging all of her friends to make a donation, and she's going to match them all. So they've already given, $3.3 million to the Morehouse School of Medicine, so she's doing
She better
even
be
more.
careful Tyler Perry doesn't give because he could break
How
her.
about that? How about that?
All right.
All right.
Phil.
I got a winner you may have seen where the Meals on Wheels program in Atlanta, which I'm a big supporter of, got $1 million anonymous donation. It serves, what, 17,000 people now. Great thing. The loser, my Bulldogs, I'm sorry, they're not doing well. My loser is Coach Rick and his coaching staff, not doing well. At the Falcons, I hate that they lost Thursday night, but let's hope they're still going to be winners.
Well, yeah, and my loser in a mild way would be the Falcons. 2 costly turnovers that cost them 2 opportunities to put points on the board, changed the total tenor of the game. But the Falcons are 5-1. They lead the division. The season's by no means over. They're fun to watch. And Phil's absolutely right. Georgia and Georgia Tech are just heartburn. Heartburn. And we'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.